All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Law Review, a show we have not done in probably close to a year. And it is an excellent show, especially for those in the Bitcoin space, so you can be up to date on what is going on. We have our awesome panel today with one more Bitcoin Khaleesi trying to jump in. Wasn't me this time. I know I always do that shit too. Hey, we're actually going to do quick intros only because we haven't done this show in a while. Please make them quick. We only got David Silver on for a little bit of time. Bill, give us a brief intro as I go to screen share and pull up your Twitter handle.
Hey, everybody. Bill Restis here, Restis Law Firm in San Diego. In the crypto space, I guess I'm probably best known or unknown for the ICO class actions against Tezos, which resulted in a settlement last year. And we now have a ICO settlement that's under preliminary approval in the autonomy ICO case. We have a partial settlement that's being preliminary approved by the judge, and autonomy ICO investors should be getting notice of that. If anybody's watching and happens to have been an investor, you can you'll get an email if that's approved to the email you used when you invested. Other than that, I'm just a guy in San Diego who likes crypto. So I'll let everybody else talk. Hi,
all
everybody.
right, awesome. Jason, how about you go next?
Hi, Jason Seibert. Been talking about crypto stuff since Tone and I were in the bathroom together.
By the way, I have this video. Chris Rose has taken everything down. I have this video backed up on my channel of me moderating the very first ever Bitcoin Law Review from the men's bathroom in Miami. And I should probably release that video. It was definitely a trip down memory lane.
It was a great show. And, you know, the fact is, we carried on while people actually used.
We lose Jason?
Yeah, look at those storms.
All right,
There
Jason, you're back. You're back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's lots of weather that's happening in places. Anyway, happy to be here. A lot of you know me from the first cryptocurrency cases that were in the space back in 2013, 2014, SEC v. Shavers, which is the case where a judge said that Bitcoin was money. And it's also the case where the court decided and the SEC admitted for purposes of securities that Bitcoin as Bitcoin itself is not a security. And all our law around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, altcoins, etc., all stemmed from that case moving forward, along with, you know, maybe 120 years of securities law and investment law attached onto that. But happy to be here, happy to be amongst friends again. Speaking of friends, good to see you, David. I'm glad to see that you came out of the Shitcoin conference unscathed, as I did last time. David and I were on a show together, on a stage together. Fisticuffs almost broke out, not between us, but with some shitcoiners. So
yeah, David, and I was also speaking at that conference, which, by the way, was a lot more fun than the Bitcoin 2021, which had way too many people.
So I guess that makes me last. I'm right now doing a combination of, I'm trying to look like Tone, growing a little facial hair. You know, see, maybe I'll shave off the sides and just go for the goatee. We'll see. You know, I can't really grow a full goatee or beard for that matter. So I'm David Silver. I am the how do they say it? I'm the crypto lawyer who sues everybody that Bill Restis doesn't, I guess. But I guess technically I did sue Tezos. I had the first federal court class action against them. Bill called himself up and introduced himself to me before he took it over. He said very complimentary things to me about my wonderful legal skills. What he didn't know at the time was everything I knew about crypto, Jason was teaching me. And Jason was just like the guy in my ear telling me how to be a lawyer in crypto. And the only successful class action against Coinbase while Tone is my primary outlet for, you know, promoting myself, I actually just wrapped up shooting my second CNBC special that's going to air next month on crypto. So mainstream media still likes me a little bit more. I guess it's because I'm prettier than Bill, but you know, that's going to actually air next month. Let's see, I got cases against Coinbase, Kraken, BitConnect, Gigawatt. But mostly nowadays, I'm kind of stuck in doing SIM swapping cases because everybody that I talk to in crypto, everyone got SIM swapped. And SIM swapping, you know, has become the primary outlet of what my firm does. We recently tried a case against we actually tried a couple of SIM swapping cases against some cellular companies that went very well. And we also sue other exchanges besides Coinbase, Kraken. I'm in the middle of lawsuits with Bitfinex and Poloniex, now Circle. We're actually, you know, it's not public yet, or I guess we haven't publicized it, but we did recently sue an exchange that can't be named and actually got punitive damages on a breach of contract claim, which is unheard of, where my clients lost about $300,000 in crypto and got a trebling damage award that was paid that made everybody very happy about it. So basically,
that's pretty rare to get treble damages on a breach of contract claim, David.
It is, and that's why you're going to see a lot of promotion when you see my new website about that. It'll be on the very first page. I'm so good, I get treble damages. But
Bill, have you ever got treble damages on a breach of contract?
I've never received treble damages, period.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. So
I mean, I've received lodestar on securities cases on the plaintiff side, you know, for actions by defendants, and that's fairly common. But breach of contract? What did you actually allege and succeed at an emotional distress claim, David?
No, we actually succeeded at a. I have to be very careful because there's a part of the settlement agreement that prohibits some confidentiality, but
sure.
I succeeded on a consumer fraud claim that allowed a state consumer fraud claim that allowed for the treble damages.
There it is.
And the judge was against giving us the payment in Bitcoin, but he was for giving us the full amount of damages that my client suffered, and I think found a creative way to do it. Because one of those differences in arbitration versus in court, arbitrators tend to be more equitable. They want to do right by everybody involved. So everyone being in arbitration, I've got hundreds of arbitrations going on right now. So it was a creative way, and it's making its way into all my lawsuits now.
If I can, I'd like to talk about a brief case that I'm working on, which I'm defending vehemently. My client, guy trades in exchanges, not in exchanges. It kind of provides liquidity for a lot of folks. He buys in blocks of 40, 60 Bitcoin at a time. All right. Plaintiff gets scammed out of $50,000 by an outfit that's known to be a scammer and hires a private investigator to go and track down where the Bitcoin went. My client, having nothing to do with the scammers, ends up with that Bitcoin in his wallet. David, you know about this person, right?
I do.
This case, the plaintiff's attorney is trying to allege that Bitcoin, as Bitcoin, is non-fungible and can be traced and recovered as stolen property to try to actually claw that back.
Well, you better win that, because the only remedy against that is, I believe, the Wyoming lien cleansing provision that they have in their substantive law. And that really, who was it that Caitlin Long was really on that, and maybe Trace Mayer were really big into that issue. But it is something you need to win.
Yeah, I know.
Holders out there.
One of the wonderful things.
Just to be clear, Bill, he's representing the defendants. Whose side do you want to win here?
The defense on this one.
Yeah, the defense on this one. Yeah.
No, we want the plaintiffs to win, guys. We want the victims to get their money back.
David, you want Bitcoin to be non-fungible? I mean, for God's sakes, for the last year, an entire industry called non-fungible tokens has surfaced. I mean, I can't wait to make these arguments to the judge.
Well, no,
you
wait,
have
wait,
Bitcoin
no.
and you have non-fungible tokens.
Hey, Jason, don't forget, right? David is sitting on claims of the Big Vern's Cryptsy scam coins. So if those coins ever move to say you, he wants the law to claw back from you.
There's movement in that case right now that's very interesting for people paying attention. There's interesting fighting going on about that case. We found another 500 Bitcoin that moved on top of the 11,000 that we already have.
Right.
And let me tell you something. There are a lot of people who are jumping into that fight soon. That's going to become public. It's going to be a very interesting fight about exactly what we're talking about right now.
All right.
Well,
so
I'll keep you guys up to speed as the things progress in that defense case that I've got, because I think that's important to, in the defense work that I've done in the crypto space. I've taken on these smaller, on the surface, smaller matters because the overarching underlying real issue that affects the industry is at risk. And I don't want some court decision that says that Bitcoin is non-fungible. So that's
there's a certain exchange, a very large exchange, that has hired a certain law firm, a very powerful law firm, to go around objecting to everything I do.
Yeah.
And they're not shooting blanks at me. Let's just say that. They are, for what Jason just said, for the people listening, they want to make sure that when you receive your Bitcoin free and clear. And that the tracing and the analytics, what makes the blockchain as far as I'm concerned, they want to make sure that once a transaction hits a formal exchange, whether it be in the US or outside the US, you are confident that when you receive a Bitcoin back, that Bitcoin belongs to you. Not sure I agree with that wholeheartedly, but I think there are going to be courts.
I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how Bitcoin works. That there is no Bitcoin to be yours. It's a value transfer, for Christ's sakes.
Right. And then
I see a Bitcoin on that picture if it doesn't blow out.
I can't see it because
in my hand. It exists.
Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
No, lost my train of thought. I was just going to say, though, if Bitcoin is fungible and it goes into an exchange, you should be able to get Bitcoin back as damages, right? So I don't need the exact same Bitcoin that I lost. As long as I get an equivalent amount of Bitcoin, that should be sufficient. But there are situations where, I don't know. I would prefer you to win. Let's just say, Jason, let's hope you win your case.
yeah, no, this is really, really important. And I'm assuming this case is not yet public knowledge, but if it does, this is something definitely to keep an eye on.
There is a filing in state court. My client has not made an appearance yet, so I'm not going to talk about the specifics of it until we actually appear.
All right. Yeah, no, that's a good one. And also, if you do lose this case, Jason, priority number one becomes.
Hold on. I want to say on the record right now, if I lose, I am not going to eat my own dick. Okay. And just so we can share, that's my tip of the hat to Mr. McAfee. Rest in peace. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of things that have happened in the crypto space over the last year, and that was a big one. But no, I will not eat my own dick if I lose the case.
But in that case, if that case is lost to the plaintiff, Bitcoin Core developers are going to significantly ramp up the speed at which Bitcoin needs to be technologically fungible if it's not able to be legally fungible. So there's a slightly different thing here. You're working on the legal fungibility of it because Bitcoin is still fairly traceable. But if the
traceability and fungibility are two different things from the legal standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bullshit.
David disagrees there?
Look, at the end of the day, I think that where Jason and I agree, and we agree more often than we disagree on this topic because he's the one that educated me about this.
Right.
So, the indoctrination is what matters. But ultimately, I think that there's just like the US, it's courts are split 50-50. Any judge on any given day can rule any way they want. One case won't make or break this.
Sure. And the ruling of a magistrate judge in McKinney, Texas, that said Bitcoin was money in a hearing, not even in a final judgment or order, changed the entire world for cryptocurrency with that order. So, that was the drop of the waterfall. Just briefly, I want to make the analogy of how technological and legal definitions of fungibility can be different. Every dollar bill, every piece of US currency is non-fungible to the extent it has a serial number stamped on it. There's no other one like it. But legally, we treat it as fungible and interchangeable. There is not a single Bitcoin that exists out there, but because there's a transaction record showing value is moved, you can make the argument for non-fungibility for that transaction because there's a transaction record associated with it. One or the other doesn't make one fungible and the other non-fungible. What matters legally is how it's viewed and how it's treated by the court from I think a damages and awards property standpoint on whether that comes back. Or can we go and say, no, 18th person down the line who never had anything to do with the original fraud or transaction, we're going to take your Bitcoin from you because that's somehow associated with this all the way down. It's not equitable. So I think establishing that line or that argument of equity and fungibility in Bitcoin is probably pretty important. We have other things to talk about. David, you wanted to talk about
well, I think ironically, that's what most people care about, is whether or not people can get sued for holding their Bitcoin. But I'm going to let Tone do the intro on SEC versus Ripple, and let Bill give the first analysis here, because Bill's the eloquent speaker of the three of us.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I was really hoping Adela would she's out somewhere where there's no internet at the moment. She was on earlier, but apparently her internet went out. And when I saw Adela in Miami, she really got me into making sure the show comes back, because she was trying to convince me as to why I should be, rooting for Ripple, which is like really, really frustrating. So I haven't really kept up with this case because it's frustrating. I don't know who I'm cheering for here, the SEC or Ripple. I honestly hate them both. And to my understanding right now, Ripple has actually filed a really good motion, or I guess they're trying to get the SEC to present documents as to why the SEC has declared Ethereum to be decentralized and Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is easier to explain. But it's really a focus on, well, why is Ethereum decentralized and Ripple isn't? And I agree, the SEC screwed up so badly in announcing.
That was one of our first crypto scam episodes,
Yeah.
Tone, was how the ICO was absolutely a security, but maybe Ethereum as Ethereum is not.
Right. But the SEC had dropped the ball so badly, especially on Ethereum, that it has now basically screwed up its Ripple case. And Ripple has a lot of money because they printed it, and let me not say something that'll get me in trouble. And they're affording some very good lawyers that are really fighting against the SEC. And if the SEC loses this case against Ripple, they will not have a lot of leg to stand on in their future cases. So I don't know how far up to speed you guys are on this. I know Adela is. But go for it, David. Your time is limited, so tell us.
My time is limited. I just got my 2-minute text, so I'll say what I said. It almost got us killed in Miami. Is everyone's talking about like what's going on in this case, like blow by blow, like lawsuits happen in a vacuum, one punch at a time. Ultimately, Ripple is going to lose. Ripple's going to settle this. They are going to lose. They're going to take a hit. They're going to pay a fine, and they're going to move on. This isn't going to be a death and destruction case because of how the SEC handled it, but ultimately there's going to be a humongous fine and everyone's going to move on. Whether that's good or bad for the space, I think it's good for the space because ultimately the reason why Ripple is going to pay the fine is because $100 million, a $200 million, a $300 million fine is meaningless to them. It's literally pennies on the dollar, if even a penny on the dollar they've made.
Well, wait, David, hold on. I gotta. You have to stick around for my follow-up question.
Okay.
Is Ripple accused of breaking security laws, or is Ripple the token a security? And the reason why I ask is because if Ripple the token is a security, how can any of these other exchanges will legally be able to trade it? Because I don't see how it would be legal for Binance, for example, to trade Ripple because Binance is not allowed to trade Apple stock. If Ripple is deemed a security, can't only like broker-dealer licensed exchanges be able to trade the Ripple token, and none of them do? So what happens to the Ripple token? Would it not have to get taken down from all public trading by, unregulated exchanges?
So the answer to that very simply is yes. If this goes all the way and it is determined that the Ripple token is a security, it can only be bought and sold by licensed broker dealers. One, we're moving in that direction anyway, so I don't really think that's going to be a long-term issue. I think ultimately all of these tokens are going to be sold by licensed broker dealers. I personally believe that's where we're moving. It's just the model that's happening. I don't think it's something that can be stopped given the exploding valuations. I don't think it's going to happen in this case, though. In this case, they're going back, and the best things that the SEC has is statements that were made early on that they knew they were doing something wrong. Now, 8 years, 9 years later, I can't remember how long it's been, they can't close the barn door on Ripple and everyone who's purchased a Ripple token, for the last 7 years. Jason's holding up a sign that says fair notice. They had fair notice. I don't like that argument because they knew what they were doing and they knew they were selling something for investment purposes. That's what I'm saying, that the SEC has all this great language, these text messages, these emails, every time that someone got up and spoke at a conference. They all knew what they were doing. We all knew what they were doing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Ripple's going to lose. It's not going to be declared a security, though. They're going to pay a fine, and they're going to move on. The fair notice argument is good. It's why they're going to pay a fine of pennies on the dollar. No one's going to go to jail. There won't be an accompanying criminal case to this. This is civil. No one's going to jail. No one's going to do anything. Ultimately, Ripple will lose. They'll pay a fine, but they won't lose the ultimate question. The ultimate question won't get answered in this case.
But wait a minute, but Ripple wants to double dip. They want to keep the XRP token and they want to have a Ripple security on a New York Stock Exchange.
Yes. And ultimately, that's what's going to happen. Just so we're clear here. When people say to me, David, how is this going to end out in 10 years? We're going to be trading crypto as securities. And all the people who create legitimate securities that can trade are going to be very happy. The OG original guys who are at the conferences when you guys were in the bathroom, they're going to be very sad. They don't want that. But ultimately, this is the ultimate get-rich plan.
Right, and so this is also the path for Binance. If Ripple gets away with this, this is what Binance is going to do. They're going to double dip. They're going to keep their scam token, and they're going to create a Binance security like Kraken is trying to go public the way Coinbase did.
Well, Jesse Powell and I fight a lot, but one thing I do agree with him is he's going to take a different path than Coinbase did on basically just dumping shares in the market to see them drop 35%. I think Kraken has a lot of smart people, and he's brought in some good professionals. But ultimately, I agree with you. Binance, especially Binance US, which is going to break off from Binance International and be completely separate and independent. they're going to create a moat that allows them to sell a Binance security token to use and make a ton of money.
Anyway, this is just so effed up on so many levels. Jason, you want to weigh in on this?
Guys,
So the
go
reason-
enjoy. I've got to run. I got a 4:30 I can't be late for. It's good to be back. I look forward to doing the next one.
Enjoy your
David,
cocktail.
Cheers.
Later, David.
So the reason I held up the fair notice sign is that the only reason people should care about the Ripple case today is whether the fair notice defense is going to hold water. And that's it.
Can you just explain what the fair notice defense is, please?
Sure. So you drive down the street, you drive through an intersection, you hold up and you do that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. The government then puts a stop sign in the intersection. You stop at the stop sign, but you get pulled over after you successfully cross the intersection legally, but you get pulled over and ticketed for the 200 times you went through that intersection without stopping for the stop sign. Okay. The government cannot win that case because they didn't give fair notice that they were going to enforce that rule or law without giving you notice that that was going to happen. Okay.
Or retroactively apply a law.
Yeah, retroactive isn't there, but the easiest way to understand fair notice is with the stop sign argument. So Ripple's saying, we operated this way because you didn't give us fair notice that you were going to enforce this. So their argument is, right, we've been here for 8 years, 5 to 8 years doing this, and you never said we couldn't. So because you didn't say we couldn't, and because you let Ethereum do that, we thought it was okay for us to do that. That's their argument. And if this court agrees with that argument, that means every shitcoin, altcoin, alternative project that's out there is going to be able to draw a line in the sand as the date of that fair notice argument, that when they win that, and say, everything I did before then, you can't come after me for, because you didn't give me fair notice. We didn't have fair notice that you were going to do this until you came after Ripple. And now that you've come after Ripple, we have our stop sign and we know how we're supposed to behave at this intersection.
So let's rewind a little bit, right?
But,
Go ahead.
I don't agree with that argument because we have, blue sky law, and we have the 1933 and 34 Act that said, how transactions should occur, what certain things are. We have Howey and its progeny, that anybody out there that's worth anything of a securities lawyer, or any company that knows that there might be some legal issues, talks to an attorney, they're going to be able to identify these transactions as potential investment contracts and be able to advise their client appropriately. When that company says, no, you don't understand, this is crypto, it's different, it's all new, and it's never been done before. And this is where I almost got in a fight in the shitcoin conference. As I said, there's nothing in the cryptocurrency world that hasn't been done before. Not a damn thing. It's all the same thing over and over again. So of course we have laws on the books to be able to deal with this. So again, this one judge has this fair notice argument sitting in front of him.
Hey, Jason, what's the blue sky law?
Oh, sorry. Blue sky law is the series of cases and statutes that were on the books in the several states, the individual states in the United States, that dealt with the sale of securities before there was the SEC.
Got it.
So you had state regulators, and that was referred to as blue sky law, based on a famous case that said the law was designed to protect the public from unscrupulous criminals that would sell you everything from the earth below to the blue sky above. And that's how it became known.
But that's literally 99% of the crypto space right now.
Yes.
All right, Bill.
Yes, let's rewind a little bit, right? So what's this case about? this case is brought under Section 5 of the Securities Act of 1933. The Securities Act of 1933 requires that if you're going to sell a security, or you're going to have an offer, and you're going to promote a security, or you're going to sell a security, then you need to register with the SEC. Okay, and what that means is, what does that mean to register with the SEC? Well, that means that you have to file a statement that discloses all of the risks associated with that potential investment. Okay. And what the SEC is saying to Ripple and its two principal executives is that when you were making the efforts to sell the token, that act of selling the token was the security, okay? And that you deprive the people that are buying the Ripple directly from either Ripple Labs or from the two executives, depriving those people of the disclosures that they would otherwise be entitled to if they were buying an investment, right? And it's basically saying you didn't give people all of the factual information they would need to know whether they should buy Ripple or not. And I think just if we start from that premise, that's a good thing, right? If I'm going to go and I'm going to buy, let's say it's a token, or if I'm going to buy into something that I think is going to make money, I'm going to want to know what does the person who's selling it to me think the risks are, right? Do they have lawsuits against them? Are there defects in the code? Are there, whatever are the regulatory risks, whatever the risks might be, right? So that I can properly price that item or that instrument. So let's fast forward. So that's what this case is about. And it's not about the secondary market trading of whether the Ripple, the token itself on the secondary markets is a security. And this goes back to, again, Tone, what you were talking about with Jason on earlier reviews, and a lot of the argument that comes up, among lawyers in this space is there a distinction between the offer itself to sell the token, the actual financing event, and the token itself? Okay, the way I read the SEC's cases is it's like, maybe the token itself would satisfy the criteria of a security in looking at it in isolation. But if you couple that token with our efforts to go out and sell it, that's a security, okay? And it's the event of raising money for the financing that is the important factor that the SEC is looking at. So how is this case being defended? Because this is where it really gets interesting, is there's this fair notice argument saying, well, we had no idea that we've been doing this, as Jason said, I'm not going to regurgitate it, is that we thought it was okay and you would never come after us. The problem with that really is that, one, before there was any law on this, there was law on the books related to other things where people were trying to raise money and sell other things that maybe had different features, that you could say, well, if you have criteria A, B, C, people expect that they're going to get money. You're tied to the fortunes of whoever's selling it to you, or you're tied to the fortunes of other people that are trading it. That whatever these criteria are that makes it a security, that you should have known better. That's what Jason was saying. You should have known better. If people at Ripple Labs would have gone and talked to their attorneys, I'm sure that they did. Their attorneys probably said to them, look, this might be a securities offering and you guys might be violating the securities laws.
So Bill, on that point, you remember when the Dow report came out and the SEC?
The Dow report.
Right? The
Dow report came out in July of 2017.
But hold on. Yeah, the Dow report referenced a 1970s case called SEC v. Glenn Turner. And SEC v. Glenn Turner, having been on the books for over 30 years, when I saw what the Dow did, I wrote down and I was arguing with Reggie Middleton and with Junseth. And I said, look, they're going to apply SEC v. Glenn Turner to this. You watch. And they did. And so that's why my previous statement I was saying when they're giving fair notice is that we've had law on the books for forever and they're even quoting it in the Dow report, a 30-year-old case. How do you not know?
You should know. So I think there is fair notice. So, but what's the problem here with Ripple? And I kind of, what's Ripple's beef? It gets a little bit more nuanced than that, because they say a couple of things. They said, well, we had a bunch of exchanges that went to the SEC that they were going to list Ripple. And they asked the SEC, should we not list Ripple? And the SEC refused to give guidance. So they're arguing, well, that was assent by silence, right? You agreed by silence. Okay, I don't know if that really gets you anywhere. And then they also said that that Ripple Labs had several consent agreements with the regulatory agencies that govern issuance of currencies and the transaction of currencies. And they said, well, listen, we're registered as a currency exchange. So if you were going to regulate us, you should have done it at that time. You should have said, all right, not only do you have to register with the currency exchange regulators, frankly, I don't know much about that, so I'm not going to opine on it, but you should have regulated us. You should have let us know at that time. So I think there's some really interesting arguments here. And one of the most interesting argument for me is there was a motion to intervene in this case by Ripple holders, okay? People who were buying Ripple on the secondary market, and they went back to the judge and they said, hey, judge, the SEC came in here and they sued Ripple, and our tokens got delisted in the United States, and our tokens lost 75% of their value. We have an interest in this case because we think that the SEC's enforcement action is costing us money. It damaged us. It made our tokens drop 75%. Well, none of this has been ruled on yet. So this is what's so fascinating about Ripple is we've got this fair notice issue. We've got the, why did you wait 8 or 9 years to tell us this and sue us? And then you've got these people who are Ripplers who say they got fucked by the SEC filing this case and it hurt them. I'm really curious to see what the court says. And I'll stop talking because I can be verbose.
So there's a couple of different arguments there. And in SEC v. Shavers, I made the argument that we didn't need the SEC to regulate Bitcoin and regulate cryptocurrency because we already had laws, we already had regulations, we already had private rights of action. People can regulate themselves.
And you had Satoshi created with no pre-money.
Right.
So there was no financing event, right?
But from a regulatory standpoint, I argued to the judge, when the judge looked at me and said, you're probably one of those guys that doesn't want any rules or any laws. And I said, no, we have rules, we have laws. Let people sue each other and let people bring up their own rights. And I said, judge, with all this money that supposedly was stolen by Shavers, what's really interesting is not one person, not one, had filed an action against Shavers. It was only the SEC that had come in. So to the extent that the SEC is supposed to be acting on behalf of the people in its actions, is it really acting on behalf of its people? And that's the argument that Ripple is making, is that the people that bought this stuff, they're harming. Now, SEC v. Liu, do you remember that case, Bill?
No, I'm not a case name.
This came out in the last 2 years. Supreme Court case that said very specifically that the SEC was no longer allowed to ask for blanket whole cloth disgorgement. So it used to be that when the SEC came in, they would ask for everything that was raised by a company during an offering. If it was determined to be fraudulent, it would say you have to give it all back. And in lieu, the defendant said, hold on a second. Disgorgement is an equitable remedy, okay? And it's only an equitable remedy because you're supposed to be putting the person that was harmed whole again. And Lou brought up the fact that the SEC, more often than not, doesn't return money to the victims. They put it into their own treasury fund. And the Supreme Court said, no, any money that's for disgorgement has to be for the benefit of the investors, not for the SEC. SEC, you want to make money? Great. Put it in administrative keep it in your administrative hearings and assess fines. But you want to come into the civil court and you want disgorgement, you can't just have carte blanche disgorgement. You have to discount. You actually have to show what of that was taken from what was ill-gotten gain. So if you have legitimate sales don't count. You have expenses for legitimate sales, those expenses don't count. But the SEC, despite that decision in lieu, is rolling on and continuing to get decisions which give them whole cloth disgorgement. And this drives me nuts that the defense bar isn't out there saying, no, SEC, you're overreaching. And until somebody cites lieu and they get a decision on lieu at the lower appellate court level, the SEC is going to continue to come after people like Ripple, because then they get their huge disgorgement payday of 500 million, 800 million, right? Because I guarantee you the SEC doesn't give two shits about somebody holding Ripple. They give a shit about putting money in their coffers, because that's how they fund
maybe
themselves.
they do, right? And maybe some sort of what they call a fair fund should be created in cases like this, right? Because let's go back again to what the purpose of a lawsuit like this is. It's that the people that are buying Ripple, the token, XRP, should they know what the fuck they're buying? And the answer is yes, they should. And there was a lot of people, for example, when Ripple went up to $3 a share, and then it crashed down to, I don't know, what was it, 10 cents a share, 5 cents a share?
Yeah, I mean, it got wrecked. Yeah.
Right. So it was like down like 99%. Right. And if I was a person in 2017 or 2016 that was buying Ripple at $1 or $2 or $3, I would have liked to have a registration statement from Ripple saying, you know what, this is, we're raising money to finance our Ripple, what do they call it? The Ripple ledger or something like that. And we're trying to build this business, and we're selling Ripple because of that, but you know, it doesn't really have a whole lot of use in the Ripple ledger, and you know, people deserve to know this.
No, Ripple was making the statement that it was going to be their backbone that banks switched to.
Well, I mean, I feel sorry. I mean, frankly, I feel sorry for Ripple holders because.
Well, no. I feel sorry that shit token is still worth 70 cents a share.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm not a fan. I don't.
There's two sides of the coin of why we're here, right? Sure, failure to notice, failure for disclosure, failure of all those things, right? But within the altcoin market, you have fair notice right from the beginning. If you're in the altcoin market, that more likely than not, it's a goddamn scam. And people that think they're going to get rich quick overnight, and as various people in that have gotten rich in 2 minutes because they were on the right side of a manipulated pump, say that the altcoin industry is generating wealth. No, it's not. It's not generating wealth. It's shifting wealth, right? You're scamming people to sell it to somebody else. Back on point. There's two sides to the coin. Failure to register is what's the term? Remember, there's inchoate crime and coed crime, right? Malum per se.
Strict liability is what it is.
Right. So the failure to register is a failure. It breaks a law, right? We've broken a law that's not murder. You're not hurting another person. You've broken a law that's on the books. Whereas if you deliberately scam someone, now you've harmed them. That's the fraud portion of it, right? So I'm more interested in this if the people that bought it, if people from Ripple are standing up and saying, yes, get me my money back. Because that was the main argument in the Tezos case, was the Mendoza line, right?
That's the other thing is you've got the Ripple class action that's going on here in the Northern District of California, where Ripple investors who did buy at $3 an XRP are asking for their money back.
Right. So why does the SEC need to step in while that's going on?
Because I think so. I'm really torn on this.
Let those people get their money back on their own. Because if SEC gets disgorgement, that's going to take funds away from those people that are bringing their own claims that claim they were harmed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point. I mean, part of me says, well, if I'm buying into a token creation event or a token distribution event, I think that I would be, or an intelligent person who does due diligence into investments, for example, if you're buying a business, if you're buying a stock, or if you're buying something that you expect is going to go up in value, then I'm going to want to know how that works. And frankly, a white paper and a shitty web page is often insufficient for me to make that determination. And I think that's where the SEC is coming from, is they're saying, look, you people are out there with financing events trying to raise money, and you're not telling people that this is most likely a scam, that you're probably going to lose your money, and the 1,000 different ways that you can get screwed. Okay.
I think we agree, Bill. I'm trying to draw the distinction that I don't think the failure of documentation is the event that people really give a shit about, right? It's the money left my hands and it went to your hands and you stole it from me. That's what people care about. Because where you say that you would do your diligence and you would do this, that, and the other, the only type of diligence that would remedy that scam thing is if in the documentation itself, in bold letters with asterisks next to it in 16-point font, it said, by the way, this is a scam, right? That's the only disclosure that's going to cover that claim. So arguing about documentation and the requirement for documentation doesn't mean shit, when at the end of the day, it's the scam that's the problem. And the question that I have is, of those 300 people, or the people that are complaining that the price dropped from $3 and are bringing a claim, who caused the drop? Where's the causal link, right? And causation is key. This is Paul's graph, right? And for you viewers that are here, this isn't Tone's normal show where we talk about trading and 9 steps of dying a terrible death when you guess wrong on a shitcoin trade. What we're talking about is when there is a legal right of action, when it should be brought, and the nuanced philosophical differences of why things are brought. And if we had 10 other attorneys on here, we would have 10 different opinions on what's right and what's not when it comes to the law. But for the most part, Bill and I agree.
I'm very much in the position that if you tell me that it's a scam, if you put up there in bold 16-point font, and then I buy it anyway, it's not your fault that I lost money. It's my fault that I lost.
No. Right? Let's say I put that in 2-point font at the bottom of a document. By the way, this is a scam, and in doing so, you've also dedicated your soul to me.
No, but Jason, but they can't.
In Eternal, I can argue that's disclosure, Your Honor. They should have read the document.
Well, but that's how the law works in the United States, right? So maybe we have this notion that the securities laws don't always 100% fit with the way crypto operates, and I get that, and I really appreciate that.
It absolutely does.
Right?
It absolutely does. Of course it does.
It does with respect to the financing event, right? The initial sale of the token from the issuer, the creator of the token, to the people that bought it from them in the first place. Right.
So when you're taking people's money to raise money, right, you have a fiduciary duty, right? Especially if you're taking people's money and telling them that it's going to make more money when you give it to me. Right now, it's contracts law, but with fiduciary duties. That's all securities law is. Okay. When somebody takes money for the sale of product, right? They're not taking somebody's money guaranteeing that they're going to make more off of it. They're saying, here, I have crops today, right? You're going to get an orange, right? We're back to Howie. It wasn't the selling of the oranges that was the investment contract, people. It was the selling of the land that grew the oranges, and the management contract to raise them, harvest them, and sell them later was the investment contract. And I don't know if your audience has ever really understood that nuance of the Howey test, Tone, but I think it's important to draw that distinction, Because what Bill's saying and what I'm saying is that the Howey test is that fundraising event and the actions that are required after that, meaning the management company has to continue to maintain the property and do what they say they're going to do with your money. Now, the subsequent oranges, Bill, and I'm going to answer your question here. We do have an answer for what those things are, and they're commodities. And we have CFTC regulation for how to handle cryptocurrencies that may be sold initially as as the subject matter of an investment contract. You see my distinction there?
That's the distinction I think is the right one, by the way.
It is. And then after that, subsequently, let the CFTC come in and the SEC needs to fuck off. And I made that argument in SEC Shavers long ago. I said the CFTC should be looking at this, not the SEC. And yet, to this day, the SEC comes in and they ignore the initial sale event and they pick up subsequent sales and subsequent activity and they go for disgorgement for it all. And it doesn't make sense to me, especially if you have a user base that's saying, no, please don't. We're happy. We're good. You say it's a scam. Great. I have disclosure. I still don't want to sell it.
So
Right.
just get outside, to get outside the, the Ripple case generally, because we still, the ICO craze is over. 2017 is done, right? We have new packaging on this now. We've got different packaging on token distribution events. But the problem
but Bill, ICOs are not done. It's just called DeFi now. We have a whole new ICO craze.
Right. No, I get it.
Or NFTs.
NFTs. Yeah.
NFTs.
Oh.
But for me, the problem is when we have one of these events, right, and people are out there, all we have is the promoters. All we have is the potential benefits. All we have is the potential upside. And there's no one that is required to disclose all the shit that's wrong with their project. And I think there's something wrong with that. Okay.
Well, if I knew,
because who's in a better position to know that? Am I as a purchaser of whatever? Am I in a position to be able to know, for example, that the code's fucked up, or know that there is, some whatever, some flaw, or is the person who's creating the token has been working on the project for 2 years? Are they allowed to sweep those things under the rug and go pay their promoters to pump it on YouTube all day? And
they're not called promoters, Bill. They're called community managers.
Yes, sure.
By the way, the SEC came out saying that they were gonna go after these community managers / promoters years ago. This still has not happened to anyone.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. I have spoken with a few people that were community managers / promoters that didn't actually sell anything or take any funds in consultation for legal defense because the SEC was coming after them. I'm not going to name names, but there are a few people in the larger projects that were gone after.
Oh, so this is coming.
No, this was a couple of years ago. But I mean, think about it. If you're the SEC and you're going to try to go after, CryptoKitty LOL 69, who is a community manager in the Cripple community, A, how do you find them? Right? And B, even if you do, they're probably outside your jurisdiction. What are you going to do? Extradite somebody for selling $100,000 worth of shit?
Yeah, well, wait a minute.
Not the low-hanging fruit the SEC wants.
Because that's not low-hanging fruit. Not many people follow CryptoKitty, 979, but there are people with YouTube channels of 100,000 viewers that promote scams all day long. A lot easier hanging fruit there.
I don't disagree. I can't speak for the SEC's intentions. I don't work for them. I've never worked for them. I've fought against them. And to a certain degree, at the 2 times that I spoke in Los Angeles, when the SEC was in the room, I was highly critical of their lack of action and the length of time that it was taking them to figure out how they were going to approach this community and approach these products, and that their lack of activity was causing a void. It was causing a vacuum. Yes, somebody in your forum just referenced BitConnect.
Yes, and Trayvon, I see it. He used to watch our shows. I don't see him in the live chat anymore these days.
Yeah, but
he's still
COVID, right? COVID has everybody. You know, we're on lockdown from shows. We should have been doing so many shows on lockdown. It's stupid. We had nothing but time to do.
I know.
Except for Bill.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back with the show. All right, guys. Look, this Ripple case has me very, very frustrated because anything other than Ripple token itself is a security. They broke security laws by selling it. The Ripple token needs to be immediately removed from all unregulated exchanges. And if the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or, I don't know, some other regulated exchange wants to pick it up, and then you can go ahead and trade it through a legal broker like an Interactive Brokers or Ameritrade. Anything less than that, I'm not going to be happy with from my point of view. And at the same time, if Ripple could, neuter some of SEC's reach, that's also a good thing. But anything other than that outcome for the Ripple token, I'm not going to be happy.
Just to wrap up, for those that are curious, what's the difference, or why hasn't this coin been gone after or that one gone after? There was a speech that was given by Director Hinman a couple years ago.
Oh, I can pull that up.
It's published, and the name of the published article is When Howie Met Gary Plastic. There are 13 points in there that Director Hinman refers to on how to analyze what a project is and whether or not it would more likely be a security or not. And so, without going through that point by point, we don't need to pull it up, Tone. We can move on to something else. I just wanted to give a direction for if anybody wanted some light reading on the toilet or before you go to bed. You've got the Hinman analysis, which is instructive and has been there for a while. So it's not like any of, again, to Bill and I's point, none of this is new. The Fair Notice defense by Ripple, I think, is very good. I think it's provocative, but ultimately, my crystal ball says that defense will fail.
All right, so let's move on. Speaking with Borderline, I mean, again, everything that Ripple token is, the Binance token is exactly the same thing. I really don't see any difference between the Binance token. Now, well, SEC is freaking lucky that they have all those early communications between the Ripple senior management, basically that they can claim that they were selling a security. Other tokens, like Binance perhaps, they may not have any of that early communication. That's a smoking gun for them to do it. But the concept of the Binance token is the same as the Ripple token, but Binance is a slightly different company that basically lets you trade scams like Ripple on their exchange. And Binance ran into a little bit of hot water with two countries, Thailand and the UK regulators that are trying to delist it. Any quick comments on this? I don't know how up to speed you guys are with this, but what do you guys think of Binance, and how would the outcome of the Ripple case affect the Binance BNB token?
Well, I can't speak for how Thailand's Securities and Exchange Commission operates. I don't know their sets of rules or regulations off the top of my head to be able to make any kind of.
Right, but what about like the general claims, right? So the SEC, this is the Thailand SEC, claims the exchange solicited the Thai public to use its services via its website, Binance, basically the Thailand SEC is not happy that Binance is advertising and allowing Thai people to trade on their exchange. Just the general concept of that.
Well, that's kind of what the position that the SEC takes in the U.S., right? So, if we were to put it in the context of the U.S. SEC, if it's trading in the U.S. with U.S. residents, then the U.S. residents are entitled to the protections of the Securities and Exchange Act. I don't know if I'd call them protections all the time. But then, so basically the point is that Binance would be allowing U.S. Investors to trade securities on an unregistered broker dealer in the U.S., if that makes sense. Now, I don't know if the Thai position is essentially the same, but that would be.
Bill, it looks like Thailand has passed a separate law defining that digital assets, the sale and exchange of digital assets, have to be done with the proper license. And to the extent that Binance is selling or facilitating exchange of what Thailand defines as a digital asset, their SEC sent them a warning saying, stop violating this. They kept doing it. I mean, Thailand has the right to make their laws the way that they want them to. Right? They could define Bitcoin as a digital asset, and therefore you are required to be licensed in Thailand to run that exchange for that.
So I think, when we talk about the securities laws, because I'm not competent, obviously, in Thai law, and neither is Jason.
Neither am I. Yeah.
Right. But if we look at this, and I look at what's good about the application of the securities laws to crypto and what's bad, I mean, I really kind of like the registration requirement, right? Because I think disclosure of negative risk factors is important. I don't really think that it becomes a little bit more difficult of a box when you talk about the secondary market trading of requiring these to be traded only by registered broker dealers. Because if you take everything that's in the Exchange Act, right? An Exchange Act deals with secondary market trading. The Securities Act deals with registration and the issuance of securities. If you take everything in the Exchange Act, it doesn't apply really well because for example, one of the issues that is necessary is for you to have a transfer agent, right? So you can't have a transfer agent with crypto. What's a transfer agent? A transfer agent is a regulated third party that's supposed to take custody from you to me when there's a transfer of a security on a secondary market. So I really, I'd like to see a future that has some of the components of the disclosure requirements of the current securities laws. And I don't think that we need the Exchange Act for for trading venues to handle crypto. I mean, maybe you do, because you have issues, like a Mt. Gox situation, or what was Cryptsy was another one that blew up. We don't want exchanges to blow up and people to lose all of their assets. But what do you think about that, Jason? Because let's take it back to hey, there she is.
Oh, sorry guys. We had a Category 1 hurricane pass through a couple days ago. So
we call that Tuesday here in Houston.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're complaining about.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about living on an island. It's good weather, great people, amazing food, but we have to deal with these downtime
every now and then.
Yeah.
So I know now that Adela has showed up, not a single person watching this show wants to hear me respond to Bill's handoff about Thai SEC
law
shutting down
Finance.
They want to hear anything and everything that Adela has to say. And so what I'm going to do is I'll be right back. But Adela, hi, good to see you.
Yeah, Adela, can't you,
Jason.
we just finished the Ripple discussion. And I know you're up to date on the Ripple discussion, and you were trying to convince me as to why I should be on the Ripple side of this situation, but I just can't, because Ripple is such a scam, and it's up there in my top 10 crypto scams of all time. Right there with Bitfinex and Plus Token and OneCoin, and potentially even worse than all of them combined. So just your quick thoughts on the Ripple case before we move on to the Tether situation.
Sure. So, Tone, you should be ecstatic about this case because it actually may accomplish something that you've been looking for years. Actually, you've been calling Ripple a scam for many years. I've many times agreed with you on that issue. But what this case really does, I think, is that it establishes that, at least so far, that these administrative agencies have been acting with some sort of level of impunity. And Ripple challenges that. And whether you love or you hate Ripple, and I know a lot of people are on the hate side of Ripple, you should appreciate the fact that now they do have to answer for some of their actions or lack of actions. Because most recently, Ripple has filed a motion for them to compel documentation that they've used for reliance that, Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities.
Yep, I mentioned that. Well, it's easy. They can just bring Jason on to tell for the Bitcoin part of the security case. But I agree, and I mentioned
we had the show. Remember, you were
Yeah.
very animated about this, and you were like, "How can they do this?" With when Gary met Howie Hinman analysis.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, how can they do this? This is ridiculous. Now, Ethereum is now a scam. It's a scam, and they're now free to roam scammily as much as they want to. But so this is what this does, Tone, is that it answers your question. Okay, it may answer your question, right? Because not only does Ripple have to come up with documentation about actually that was struck down, that was denied, that motion was denied, but they will come out with more documentation, and now the SEC now has to come out with documentation on their reliance, and now you get your question gets satisfied. Like, why did the SEC get to that position?
Yeah,
Possibly.
you're right. No, that would be great, and I would love to know what idiots at the SEC decided that Ethereum was sufficiently decentralized and how they came to that conclusion as to not go after Ethereum for the same bullshit that they're going after Ripple for.
Right, and I think Hinman might actually end up being deposed on that question. So that's, there's so many things happening in the case simultaneously, and I'm just tuning in.
Hinman's got a very simple defense. I mean, that would be, if I was Hinman, I would just sit there on a stand going, yeah, I clearly stated that was my opinion, and that's what we said at the time. This is just one guy's opinion. This is not any kind of a ruling. This is a guy's opinion that everyone assumed was in a court of law. But at the same time, the SEC had 3 years to come back after that and say, no, that's one guy's opinion. And the SEC should still come after Ethereum for the same shit they're coming after Ripple for. But it's getting to be too late. Like, eventually there might be a statute of limitations here. Jason may be able to help with that one.
Generally speaking, for regulatory actions, the SEC has a very extended statute of limitations to be able to proceed.
Though technically Ripple's been around longer than Ethereum, so it's they're going after Ripple, so they still have plenty of time to go after Ethereum.
For administrative actions, I'd have to recheck the statutes, but generally for administrative actions, there's a 7-year statute of limitations. And the argument for extending those statute of limitations would be to say that although the original event occurred beyond that statute of limitations, because there's continuing activity, the statute continues because it's ongoing operations. A continuing event would be the argument that somebody trying to extend the statute of limitations would bring, but without seeing the actual regs and those rules and how that would be interpreted, I can't say definitively.
And guys, those that are watching, we haven't done the show in a while. Those that are curious in all the ways Ethereum broke all the same security laws that Ripple is being accused of, you can check out the episode where Jason and I on Crypto Scam Ethereum, episode 1, Ethereum breaking security laws. That was an episode, and we also described something similar when we had Bruce Fenton on the show talking about Ravencoin, and we also explained it when we had Richard Hart on the show in the Hex situation. They're all very similar instances of security contracts that could be argued that that's what they did to launch the coin. And this is the thing, and this is what's frustrating me, that the SEC goes after these things. Like, I understand there is a violation of security laws and actually selling something that continues to be traded to this day. And I'm still very confused as to what happens. Like, as I mentioned earlier with my question to Silver, in that, are they just going to get a slap on the wrist like what happened with EOS? Or is it like, hey guys, you sold a security and that security is still being traded. So what happens to the security now? Like, I just find it weird that if they just get a fine and then the Ripple token just goes on its merry way.
Well, again, I think this is why we, the SEC has been focusing on the fundraising event, right? Because in some sense, once the token's out there and people are trading it, it's, you do in some sense cause potential. I mean, I see the argument of people coming in and saying, well, wait a minute, we didn't have anything to do with this. I didn't buy it from Ripple Labs. I didn't buy it from the Ethereum Foundation. I bought it from Kraken, or I bought it from,
Right.
Genesis, right? So, and it's a really interesting thing, because David said, when he came on here, he said, look, what's going to happen is that you're going to have Ripple trading on an exchange that is licensed as a broker dealer. I don't really know if that's the trajectory of this. I think that it might be for certain types of tokens, but I don't necessarily think your Ripples or your Tezos or whatnot are necessarily going to fall into that category. Now, that is a little bit of a contrary take, because if you go back and you look at the SEC's DAO report, for example, which is one of their big first interpretations of this, they said, look, if you are going to be trading tokens that are a security, it does need to be on a registered broker dealer, because only registered broker dealers can trade securities. And I think that the stopgap measure between now and maybe 5 years from now, when we have a comprehensive set of legislation that specifically addresses all the various permutations of tokens that aren't securities, or how it's a security or not, I think that is, if I was a regulator, and I'm not, thank God, because I don't think I would do a very good job as a bureaucrat, but let's say I was, I think that's the position that I would try to take, is I would try to say, okay, we're going to focus on the fundraising event, and then once everything is out there, like I believe it was Hinman that said, there can be a distinction between the fundraising event and the token itself. And I think that's kind of how you have to straddle it until.
Except Hinman went a little bit further. He said, there's a point on the continuum, and that's why he references Gary Plastic, is there's a continuum where
we have a Rippler in here, by the way, who's telling me that I shouldn't call XRP a Ripple.
Okay, what do we call it?
I don't know.
Well, they want to call it XRP. I mean, like.
I get it. People are invested. They think it's going to go up and it's the future of finance, and other people have a different opinion.
It's okay. What I was going to refer to is that, and every now and then I'll be asked to write legal opinions to support a coin's listing on an exchange. And one of the things that I do in my opinions is I will do a Hinman analysis as to whether or not that project, which clearly started off with centralized management and control, and clearly started off with individual assets that were owned by the entity in order to start that, whether or not it has exceeded such decentralization in technology and in management that it is now no longer effective, that the coin itself is no longer dependent upon the management and managerial essential efforts of the centralizing party for its success or failure. And when you're looking at an investment contract analysis, those are the key things, right? Am I relying on the management and control, the essential management and control of others in purchasing that product? And so the argument that there is for Ethereum today is that you're really not relying on, nor could you say you're solely relying on that, because you have so many different people mining it, you have so many different people controlling it, so many different people that are not coordinated, they're not associated in any form of entity or partnership, that they are decentralized, and then Howey is defeated based on that investment contract analysis. Ripple, I don't know if we can make that same statement, that they are sufficiently technologically and managerially decentralized under the Hinman analysis.
They will try.
Well, sure. I don't know if I don't know if I would agree with that, but somebody else may argue it, and it's a continuum, right? It's supposed to be a case-by-case basis. And the argument for DAOs being decentralized was that it's a smart contract that's running it all. You're not relying on anybody to do it. But the fact is, you relied on an individual to draft that smart contract. You relied on their efforts for it to succeed. And even though that DAO may continue to operate self-sufficiently afterwards, you're still relying on that individual instance of that management control for that project to succeed. So I think the argument for DAOs being decentralized, they may be from a technological standpoint because they operate on a decentralized network, but legally they are not decentralized because they are operating on a singular controlling function. So again, these are, for guys that are watching that don't understand the legal and technical differences between decentralization, these things matter when it comes to regulatory actions, because being able to explain that distinction to a regulator or to a product developer or to an exchange or to whomever that establishes that you've reached that level of decentralization such that your coin would no longer be considered a security and can be listed on something like Binance or Bitfinex or Coinbase without that exchange having to be, a registered exchange, is important. Now, one of the things that I thought of when you guys were talking about what happens to Ripple if it is determined to be a security, where is it sold? And I thought that was the whole point, Tone, of the T0 platform. The development of the T0 platform was that as these securities become tradable on a blockchain, that the home for that would be on something like T0, where it's set up to be able to handle those things.
Jason, yes, but T0 itself has its own shitcoin in violation of security laws. So we're back to the whole freaking catch-22 here.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that there are places where these things could still have volume, but these projects that first start up, they're not going to places like Gemini or Coinbase or the larger exchanges where the big volume is. They're going to these smaller exchanges where volume numbers are fabricated. And we know that volume numbers are fabricated on the smaller exchanges because those smaller exchanges want to get attention there. It's no secret that exchanges can double, triple, or quadruple their transactions within their exchange because it's within their exchange. It's not like those trades are actually being recorded in a blockchain somewhere for us to be able to do that audit. So you get that volume, you get that attention, right? Like, you're going to kill me, but Hex, 95% of Hex's volume is on a shitty little exchange that you don't need AML KYC to even exchange on, and it's not regulated in the US. So, yay, go Hex. You guys are doing a great job of pumping your own shit. I mean, at least with I'll say this, at least with Ripple, they're making an attempt to be somewhat legitimate.
Well, I mean, I
Right.
think
Well,
this
yeah,
raises-
I mean, like, look, once you make $1 billion, you're gonna, want to legitimize it. I'm sure Richard Hart would love to settle with, I don't know if he's a US citizen or not, but I'm sure he'll be happy to settle with the SEC and every other regulator under the sun for $100 million, keeping his $1 billion that he printed for himself.
Sure, and there is certain business strategy that says we know we're going to openly violate these rules, hoping that as a part of a cost of doing business, we'll set aside 10-20% of our fundraising in a legal fund that we can just throw right at the regulator right at the beginning and try to buy our way out of it and move on. That was something that I talked about a few times on the stage and back in the ICO craze. Was all of these startups, all of these ICOs are trying to figure out whether or not they should comply. And as an attorney, I can't make a client comply. I can only advise them. And I can say, if you choose to comply, this is the cost. You choose not to comply, this is the cost. And choosing not to comply means maybe you make $100 million and you have to set aside, 2 years of your life to be dressed in denim and try to get into a federal work camp, preferably one with a golf course. But if that's your cost of entry and you're willing to suffer those costs, then do it, make your choice. And a lot of these guys that did ICOs made those choices to make the big money and take the risk that I'm gonna make the money, they can try to take the money, I'm gonna do a year or two in jail, and that's worth it because at the end of the day, I'll have $100 million, I can go sit on a beach somewhere, right? Speaking of beaches, Adela, you're back.
All right,
Hi.
a few more thoughts on Ripple. Then I do want to talk about Tether, and then hopefully we still have time for the Crypto 6.
Right. So I'm really sorry about that again, but at least it did accomplish what I really wanted to do. And that was to get the team back together, get the Bitcoin Law Review back on. And I did do that. But yeah, so Tone, just my final thoughts on the whole Ripple matter is that hopefully it will bring some more clarity, and it may possibly stem what we've seen, which is what I talked about before, which is these, administrative agencies acting with impunity. And this Ripple thing, this is not where it starts. This Ripple thing starts in 2014 when FinCEN assessed civil money damage against Ripple for not complying with the Bank Secrecy Act. And Jason knows. Jason and I have talked about this extensively. They were acting as according to FinCEN, acting as an unlicensed money transmitter, and had to then register with FinCEN and implement an AML program and officer, and they were fined $800,000. I think
that's right.
And so Ripple does make a really great point using the fair notice doctrine. Like, shit has been going on for a while, but you guys have not said or done anything to help us think that we were doing anything wrong. And if I'm not mistaken, from reading all of the correspondence, I think that Ripple did ask or reach out to the SEC several times, formally and informally, for a position and gotten a response. And in my work, I've experienced this. I work generally for exchanges in the trenches. I've been in a position where we have applied for an administrative decision or opinion from FinCEN and got nothing, absolutely nothing back. And there's a formal process for this, and we just received nothing. And so maybe.
By the way, Adela, I want to bring up, I'm sorry you didn't get the memo. You were supposed to wear some form of facial hair to be on this panel today.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Bill's
I do.
got it. Tone has it.
I prefer you without, Adela.
No, all I'm saying is get like some glue, a fake mustache. I think you look good with a Fu Manchu, actually.
Next time my internet cuts out, I can get one. Yeah. Look, I do shows in toilets and all sorts of places. So
did you see the picture of that up earlier?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Epic. Yeah.
That was a good day.
That was a good day. Yeah.
Tone, you wanted to talk about Tether.
Yes. Let's go to screen share. What's the latest on Tether? Look, it's kind of funny, but it's perhaps, well, it is kind of funny. I am so hated by Bitfinex and Tether people and all of the Tether haters, right? Like between Bitfinex and all the other Tether people. So all of those people think that I defend Tether, and I am literally in the paperwork at the New York Attorney General, known as the colossal douche, as according to the email records of the lawyer from Tether or Bitfinex or whatever. So what is the latest with this case? Like, is the New York Attorney General able to find out how backed Tether are? Where is that money? Because all we know is the following. All we know is this image right here that Tether recently released, and by recently I mean like 6 months ago. This is Tether's own internal audit that they audited, I believe, themselves, where they announced that, hey, this is the Tether backing, and 75% of that backing is cash, cash equivalents, and other stuff. And within the 75%, only 3% is actual cash, and 65% is commercial paper. And then I'm not even sure what fiduciary deposits are, and I'm a finance person. Then there are some reverse repo notes and treasury bills. Then there are these sections here that are secured loans, corporate bonds, and other investments. So other investments could include shitcoins, but that's only 1.64%. So all of a sudden, all of the Tether, Tether is a scam and they're printing Tether out of thin air. All of those people are now saying that Tether is only 3% backed by cash because they don't consider all this other stuff as a reasonable backing of Tether. Now, of course, we have to take this image with a grain of salt because it's provided by the people at Tether, right? So if we take the crazy assumption that this is true, this is showing that Tether is 100% backed, because what they're not showing is this part. Where is it? The $850 million of lost funds that are still kind of unaccounted for, because Tether was claiming that this money was confiscated by governments. I believe it was Poland or some other jurisdiction. And they're saying that this money is only missing because of governments, or maybe, I don't know, somebody stole it from them or something. Like, this case is completely crazy. I still don't know what the resolution is. It's been years. Nobody knows what's going on. What are your general thoughts on Ripple? I don't know, whoever wants to begin, just start talking.
Well, I almost got into a fight at Shitcoin 2021 over this topic as well. We're talking about stable coins, right? And the concept of Tether as a stable coin, as an accounting function, right from the beginning made a lot of sense to me when I was day trading, because I could resolve my transactions back to Tether instead of having to wait for transactions to resolve in Bitcoin because of block times or what have you. That's back in the old BTCE days, Tone, you may recall, before they had Tether and other stable coin pairs. You'd make a trade and you'd have to sit there for 20, 30 minutes before you could trade again. And when Tether came along, everybody thought it was fantastic. And we all asked the question, okay, well, if I'm getting a Tether and I have a US dollar value because I just sold Bitcoin, do I actually have a US dollar or do I have a Tether? Because when I used to resolve to US dollars at something like BTCE, I felt really confident I actually had that dollar because I could transfer it out. And the assurance back in those times was that for every Tether, there's a dollar in the bank. And anybody that understood how Tether was working and how it was functioning could look at that and say, well, that's absolute horseshit. There's no way there's $1 in the bank for every Tether that exists. So,
But,
you know,
wait a minute, but why? Why do you assume that?
Here's why I'm tying this in.
Why do you assume that?
Here's why I'm tying this in. With Mark Cuban's uproar over what was the stable coin that cratered and he got all upset about it. Somebody in the chat's gonna know. It was like iron something.
It was some
Anyway, we've had algorithmic stable coins that are supposed to expand and limit their supply based on
the one that happened recently, the stable dollar or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so you've got stable coins that are supposed to be backed, and then you have stable coins that are algorithmic, right? And the stable coins that were algorithmic, well, great. The world just proved that those things break and can be broken in a night. So not so stable. So the concern over Tether is that as it's supposed to be an asset-backed stable coin, is it truly asset-backed? And that's the conversation here, right?
I mean, I think that isn't that a regulator's question though? I mean, let's say if I'm a consumer of these particular, let's say I'm a consumer of Tether, and
but why do you consume Tether?
Well, but here, let me finish. Let's say I'm using Tether and it's accepted by Gemini or it's accepted by Kraken to exchange one Tether for each $1 that I want to remove in the fiat off ramp from the crypto universe, right? As long as there is an implicit assumption by the exchanges that that's worth $1, why does it need to be backed? I mean, I get the point that I get it, but isn't this really a wonky regulator's question? And I would ask that to Adela because, and it sounds like she still has some internet problems again.
Yeah, I've been getting a few messages from her on the side that she is trying to get back in, but her internet's not stable right now. And she also asked me to tell the troll trash talkers in your forum to shut up because Adela and I are like brother and sister, and I wasn't rude to her because I have no idea what you're talking about. So Dels and I go way back. Bill, I think
this seems to be an issue that the banking regulators are concerned about. This is something the Federal Reserve is concerned about because you have an effort from central banks to create the GBTCs, right? Not GBTC, the central bank digital.
Yeah, CBDC.
Right? So
I think the timing of this article and the timing of this conversation is directly related to the run on the other stable coins and asking whether or not they should be regulated, because Mark Cuban called for regulation of them, right? And for more protections after he lost a bunch of money. Because the only reason he was into those wonky algorithmic stablecoins to begin with, and the only value that I see out of them, has nothing to do with them being stable. It has everything to do with people trying to find another financial product to take micro penny arbitrage plays as those coins swap and trade value and move in value across different exchanges. Otherwise, I don't see a value for having multiple stable coins that need to be based on an algorithm, right? To me, a stable coin is a casino chip, right? You walk into a casino, you give them $1, they got $1 in their bank, and they're required by the gaming commission to have so many dollars in the bank to cover how many chips they have on the floor. Right.
Yeah, but who's redeeming? That's what I want. That's my whole point, is who's redeeming a Tether at, we'll call it the bank of Tether, because I admit I don't know everything about it. But isn't that only an issue if you're going to redeem it, not from the exchange that you're using, but from the issuer of the token itself? And as long as you can redeem it from the exchange, then who gives a shit? Except the regulators, right? Except Treasury and except the Fed.
Well, the only one that could really redeem the Tether for the dollars or destroy Tether on the market is Bitfinex, right? So here, if I just go to coin market cap, and am I still on screen share, by the way? I think I am.
Yes. Yeah.
And I go to Tether, and we look at the history of Tether. Where is their market cap? And we can go max. Okay, so the amount of Tether in circulation doesn't actually drop very often, but it does drop. Like you can kind of see it, slightly going down. So a little bit of Tether is being withdrawn from circulation. Now, who's in the best position to do that? Obviously Bitfinex, because it's the same parent company of Bitfinex and Tether, the Ifinex company. Now, the only reason why they would do that is if people are selling them a bunch of Tether, right? But Tether is one of those things. It's like more Tether is supposed to get printed as there's more demand for Tether in the world. And they're supposed to put cash at the bank to back it. Now, to me, I personally don't really care whether that cash is literally cash or stable debt, right? Like short-term commercial paper, whatever, right? The backing is there. Now, granted, whoever is managing the underlying money of Tether could invest it in BitConnect and lose it all. That is very, very possible. And this is why we don't actually know how much value is backing that Tether. But if you invested wisely in this commercial paper, then that backing of Tether could actually make money. Now, in a perfect world, all that money would be sitting in cash. But Jason, you made a statement earlier that it's laughable that all the Tether is backed by the underlying dollars. And my question to you is, other than the $850 million that Tether has admitted not backing Tether, how do you know, or how does anybody know that the rest, whatever the market cap of Tether is, what's the market cap of Tether? The market cap of Tether is $62 billion, right? So other than, the 850 million that is missing, how do we know that there isn't $62 billion sitting in a bank? Now, obviously, there's no $62 billion worth of cash, but how do we know that this graph that Tether provided is a lie? Is my question. Where's that graph?
Well, you can look at that and you can say, okay, well, let me make this a little bigger on the screen. So commercial paper, well, what could commercial paper be? Commercial paper could be a lot of things. It could be.
Hey, Bill, I've got hold on.
So it could be a promissory note between.
Hold on, I got this.
Right. Tether and Joe Blow, right? And Joe Blow has got, there you go.
20 billion in 6 months. Do you agree?
I would love that. Yes.
Great. Okay.
We call that commercial paper.
Bill,
right? So
Jason, this says that I'm going to give Bill 20 billion in 6 months. Now, Bill can take that and go sell that to somebody else, or sell a portion of it or a fraction of it to someone else, or say, I'll lend you 20 billion in 5 years based on the paper that I've got here. And that's commercial paper as it runs around. It's creative finance. There's an entire course in law school on how to structure these things. I took that course from Terry O'Neill in 2009 in my 3rd year of law school. Fascinating course.
Well, it's fascinating, but the point, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is, what is the backing trying to accomplish, right? If I'm worried about Tether, okay, I want to know that it's backed because I want to know that I can exchange 1 Tether for a US dollar equivalent, one, right? Now, at some point, that becomes a brand. It's a brand name. So you can go, and that brand will be valuable simply because it's been around for a while and it has.
That's a point, man.
right?
It's Xerox or it's Kleenex,
Right.
right?
It's Xerox
Yep.
or it's Kleenex. So,
Yep.
so for me, as someone who's going to utilize a Tether, I'm never actually going to redeem it. Binance might redeem it, or some other exchange might go to
Right.
redeem
Or Coinbase, or
But the point is, the brand is established. People recognize it as a tether is worth a tether, and unless there's some sort of some wonky regulatory action against it, I don't see why anybody cares. And again, unless you're the Federal Reserve or the U.S. Treasury or FinCEN or all these other.
your point's well taken that
Right.
it's a wonky regulator question, but in a self-regulated market, which many people in the cryptocurrency push for, right? Lack of government intervention, let people regulate their own markets, let it be a free market economy. A lot of people have those questions because they have those concerns because they're trying to self-regulate. And I don't disagree with that. I think it's a valid question to ask. I don't know how you find the answer, where you find the trust in that. And as a society, I think generally the law looks at, trust of people doing what they say they do is the job of the person doing it. And it's a job of the government to make sure that they're doing that so people don't get harmed.
Right.
But I'm not offended by the crypto community looking at Tether and saying, really? I think it's good. Because without
No, Jason, I agree. I have no problem with that. But the crypto community is also mad at me that I am not calling Tether a scam. And my answer to them is, I don't know. I'm waiting for the New York Attorney General to tell us.
That's interesting, man.
I mean, I get it. So, but let's look at this from another perspective. Let's say you wanted to have the Musk dollar, right? And instead of having the Elon Musk dollar being backed by anything, it's backed by his brand. And people say, you know what? Because it's a Musk dollar, I'm going to pay $1, and it's going to have $1 equivalency. My point is that the only reason we give a shit about the backing is because it protects the brand. I think we've gotten to a point now where the brand is sufficient in and of itself, just like people might be able to come and say,
Hold on a second. I got a question for Tone.
Buy it instrument.
Yeah.
I got a question for Tone and Bill. Okay. Tone, you're saying that people are not, they're coming after you for not calling Tether a scam. Okay?
Yes.
And Bill, have you ever heard of anybody attempting to redeem a Tether and not having been given that value?
No,
I haven't.
But that's my whole point.
Okay, so Tone, for the people that are, this is my, and we can do a whole show on this. The people that are saying that Tether is a scam, okay, bring them on and show me how they were scammed. Ask them, how were they individually scammed? How are you wrong? Have you heard of anybody not being able to redeem a Tether?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, most people are not able to redeem Tether because Tether is very selective on who they allow to redeem Tether, which basically means exchanges can do it. But
no. What I'm saying is look, I took payment for legal services 3 weeks ago in Tether, all right? And I had zero problem exchanging that out for whatever I wanted to.
Right, very liquid.
It's very liquid. Show me a non-liquidity point, and now we have a scam.
So
that's
Bill,
my point, right?
Bill, also, the reason why people are upset at Tether, not because of that, right? Has nothing to do with the brand. The reason why they're upset at Tether is because they feel that Bitfinex, the parent company of Bitfinex, prints billions of dollars out of thin air to pump the price of Bitcoin. And that's why they're very, very upset. Now, I'm not sure.
Wait. You're telling me that there's market manipulation in crypto? I'm shocked.
Yeah,
That was a Casablanca quote, but you know.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, no, I get it. I mean, I get that that's what people think, but the point is, and I saw the lawsuit against Bitfinex and iFinex. I was actually, how do I say this? Almost involved in that case.
That's a delicate way of putting it.
Yeah, and you know, the theory is that Bitcoin has no. First of all, the theory of it was that that Tether is like the predominant source of value for Bitcoin. Okay, so if it's pumping anything, maybe it's pumping Bitcoin, maybe it's pumping. It's not like you can only exchange Tether for Bitcoin. You can exchange Tether for ETH. You can exchange Tether for Binance. You can exchange it for any other coins. So, you know, this notion that the all of the demand for Bitcoin and the price response of Bitcoin is manipulated and it's not real. It's not an effect of real market supply and demand. I just don't see that. You've got one of the most liquid markets in the world right now. We've got $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion asset, 800 billion or whatever it is for Bitcoin alone. We've got a trillion and a half market cap for all the currencies, and it just seems like FUD to me. It doesn't because I have a finance background, and it doesn't, and I know a lot about market structure, particularly in the securities and commodity markets. It just doesn't make any sense to me that this is the primary driver of all of Bitcoin. The whole case, for example, the private case against Bitfinex and iFinex, and I'm recalling it now, was that was the reason it pumped to 17,000 in 2017, and the reason that it crashed was also because of withdrawal of Tether's liquidity. It just doesn't. Hey, nice to have you back, Adele.
Yeah, let me just jump in super quickly and say
Are you
something.
listening to it? Are you at least able to listen to us?
I'm able to listen
Okay.
in. It's fascinating stuff, and I actually want to give a real sort of real world example of my experience with Tether. So I have a vanity plate. It says Bitcoin. I live on a small island with not very many people. And so people just know I'm like the crypto person here, you know? And one person sought me out, and this person was talking about Tether. And I was like, why do you use Tether? And he was like, well, it has the word like USD in it. It has USD. And I thought, oh, okay, that's very interesting. Let's try to unpack this. And so when I spoke to this person more, I got down more to the crux of the situation. And for them, USD tied that asset with legitimacy and stability. And for them in the legacy world, for us in the legacy world, we have the Eastern Central Caribbean Bank and their currency board, and their job is the management of exchange rates and the money supply here. So the Eastern Caribbean dollar is backed to the US dollar by 2.78 to 1. And so for them, this whole legitimacy was tied with the possibility that this thing was acting as a sort of currency board. And that's in the developing world. It's just a real world use case scenario.
So after shitcoin 2021, and after almost going to blows with the stablecoin bros that were trying to tell me that their algorithmic stablecoins were awesome, I called up a very good friend of all of ours, John Sith, and I asked him a very plain question: is it me, or is every damn stablecoin just a scam for an arbitrage play? And his response was, all of them, maybe not Tether. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, there is a use case for Tether, and Tether is being used more than any other cryptocurrency in the unbanked populations of the world, because they know if they get paid in Tether, it's not going to go up or down. And merchants or people in that peer-to-peer transaction know if they receive Tether, it's not going to go up or down because they're not trying to invest. They're just trying to have a peer-to-peer transaction that's off the books amongst themselves, and Tether provides them that ability to do it. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the conversation also says there are uses for stable coins in the world other than in exchanges and for accounting at the end of the day, and people are using them. And I just thought it was very poignant of Junseth to suggest that Tether is the preferred cryptocurrency in the unbanked world, not Bitcoin. And Adela, I think your story touches that, right? There's a trust because of that backing with USD being associated to it. That Tether.
And I think in this space we often forget use cases like real shit. I live in the developing world. I live in a space where there's a high asymmetric demand to buy and huge amount of curiosity about crypto. Especially, you know, since we have to have things like currency boards down there, we have to peg our currency to keep it stable to what we consider a stronger currency. And so you meet anyone on the street and they can do that 2.7 conversion in a second. And, you know, we forget that this is like literally the purpose of crypto, you know, is to help people that do not have access to sophisticated financial services or even basic ones.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So here's a comment. If they cannot prove that they are 100% backed with a thorough audit, how can we be sure that they do not print USDT out of thin air and buy Bitcoin with it? Exactly. We don't know. But I don't understand how we don't.
How's that any different than the US dollar or any other currency?
I was going to say.
Also, I want to.
I agree.
While it's still
I always
here,
say we don't know.
There's a question from Hank Verge that says that I heard that Bitcoin is going to be upgraded to a smart contract platform. Actually, there's already a smart contract platform within the Bitcoin network, and that's called Counterparty, and it has a decentralized exchange to it, and that's where you can get your rare Pepes. Go buy my rare Pepes. I have certified fake rare Pepes on that.
I was gonna suggest Liquid, but sure.
Counterparty is the best smart contracting platform on the Bitcoin network,
which existed before Ethereum.
Yes, absolutely, it existed before Ethereum. And when people say there are no decentralized exchanges, bullshit. The DEX is decentralized and has been forever. So,
by the way, anybody who's under 40 and watching this is going like, "Wow, these are some crypto boomers right there."
Right?
Yeah.
Right,
you just boomered me, didn't you?
I did.
So back to Tether and to finish this up, right? So look, the Tether thing is really, really kind of crazy. I don't hold any Tether. I've never used Tether. I've never accepted Tether. Never sent Tether anywhere. I would never hold on to Tether because I don't trust it. But me not trusting something, I mean, unless I know it's a scam. Like, for example, I know Ethereum was a scam the way it started because I know the beginnings of Ethereum and I know how it was built. So are all these other things that are being printed. According to what Tether is supposed to be, every single Tether is supposed to be backed by something. Now, when they admit that $1 billion of that backing magically disappeared because some government confiscated, I mean, I'm waiting for the court to come to the resolution on that. I don't even know what the New York Attorney General is doing. This case is going on and on and on, and Tether is not providing an audit, and that's okay. I guess from their side, they're able to get away with it. But all of these people think that with all this regulatory scrutiny, Tether still pushes a button, prints billions of Tether out of thin air, and just buys Bitcoin with it. Like, I don't understand how that is the assumption. I'm not saying that cannot be happening. It is possible that for the last 3 years, the people at Tether were just printing money out of thin air and buying Bitcoin with it. And there's like one guy that has more Bitcoin than Satoshi, $62 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? Because he printed all that Tether. Like, this is possible, but it is also pretty damn unlikely.
So do you remember, you probably remember back in the day, 2011, 2012, 2013, when Shavers was running his Bitcoin savings and trust operation.
Shavers was before my time in crypto, but I'm very aware of the case.
So this isn't about the case. This is what he used to do with his Bitcoin. Okay. And Junseth did a very good interview with him.
Oh, no, I know. I've heard it. Look, I know what he did with his Bitcoin. I'm very aware of what
Shavers
did. Yeah.
On every time that he would have a liquidation event, he would go on to Bitcoin Talk or wherever it was, and he would announce, get ready, here it comes. And he would move an entire market inside of a minute by everything he was doing in order to protect his positions within the market. 100% manipulating it, but would announce it right from the beginning that he was doing it. Now, the difference is he was doing it with actual Bitcoin, right? Not creating Tether to buy Bitcoin to then modify the price or as whatever this person alleges. Thinking that markets aren't manipulated. Markets are manipulated, period. 100%. I don't care if somebody got a bunch of Tether to manipulate the markets. I don't care. Wasn't my market, wasn't my exchange. Did my price go up? Yeah. Did my price go down afterwards? Sure. What the hell can I do about it, right? I can't do anything about it, which comes to Bill's question isn't this a regulator question about how Tether is being used and whether or not it's adequately backed?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at the clock and I need to wrap this up. It's 2 o'clock on the West Coast. So I'll give my final comment on Tether and say goodbye to everybody and say thank you for listening. And it's been nice to see these fine, intelligent people and talk to you again. For me, Tether is a problem for governments. It's a problem for central banks and treasuries who want to have a monopoly on the issuance of currency, right? Because it affects their ability to fund themselves. It affects their ability to go into deficits. And for me, that the average user of Tether or another stable coin shouldn't, in all aspects, probably doesn't have anything to worry about, except for the fact that because it's a problem for states and governments and their ability to fund themselves and their ability to have central bank digital currencies, which everybody's trying to come out with, I think we can expect there to be regulatory crackdowns in stable coins. And if there is regulatory crackdowns in stable coins, then you might lose whatever you're holding at any given time. If you know, for example, let's say FinCEN comes out and says, you know, you can't trade these in the United States. Any US based crypto trading venue can't trade them, you can't redeem them, then that's a problem. And I think that is a realistic possibility, but it's not because Tether's not backed.
We just lost Adela again.
Right, but it's not because Tether's not backed. It's because a regulator thinks it infringes on their seniority privilege. And with that, I got to go. Tone, let's do one of these again.
Yeah, no, we're gonna do it soon because we may not get to the Crypto 6 today, so maybe we'll do it in a week or so. And maybe I can get a couple of the Crypto 6 to come on. Aria was thinking of coming on, and Ian Freeman was thinking of coming on. I'm always a little hesitant on bringing people on that are in the middle of a very serious case. They could put them in prison for a long, long time. But they were thinking of coming on.
If I was their lawyer, I would tell them, don't say a damn thing.
Right.
Why make any statements at all? Are you kidding?
Well, let me tell you what they're actively doing from what I heard.
Okay, listen. Yeah. I'll let you guys continue, but I'm going to have to sign off. Thanks,
Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Yeah. So, from what I'm hearing that they're doing is, and you may like go like this in a second. Now I think this is great, but so they've been actively hitting the courthouses and handing out jury nullification information in front of the courthouses.
So, full disclosure, I can't speak about any of this because for a brief period of time, I was in conversation with a few of the defendants to determine whether or not we'd enter into an attorney-client agreement and whether or not I would handle their representation. And as a result, there's an attorney-client privilege that extends to that knowledge, and I can't say a word, even though I want to, about that.
But just so people know what we're talking about this case. And this is where I would love to have Adela on the show because Adela
could talk about it, right?
Yeah. Adela's watching, and I'm hoping that Adela comes back on as I introduce the case. And if Adela can't come back on, we will have to save this case for another time. Now, personally, I really like Ian Freeman. I mean, I've known him for a while. I'm not very familiar with everyone else. Arya was involved in an interview of me along with Ian at last year's Pork Fest. And here's what they're accused of. 6 individuals were indicted by the federal grand jury in New Hampshire, the live free or die state, and charged with participating in a conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business and other offenses. So here's basically what they did. They were buying and selling Bitcoin without registering with FinCEN. They were also operating ATM machines in New Hampshire without registering with FinCEN. So this is the kind of case that many other people have already gone to prison for. There was a case out of California, Teresa, I believe her name was. Also, what's his name? Raccoons. What was his first name? That was the crazy. I had him on my show. That was one of my craziest interviews. I forgot his name. Also the Espinoza case down in Miami, though I think he won the initial one, and then they were going after him again. So this is lots and lots of people. Charlie Shrem as well. It was money transmission. It's pretty much the same. It's all the same thing. So most of the people plead guilty, get a 2-year sentence in a camp with may or may not have a golf course on it, but no fence. They usually do, 12 to 14 months of time, and then they come out and everything is fine. Now,
for those of you that are considering which camp you would want to go to, I recommend Camp Texarkana. I've visited there a few times. Certain people that I've represented, and they've been able to go to Camp Texarkana, and it's a very lovely place. I suggest you learn how to treat herring as currency before you go into camp.
Yeah, Charlie Schramm talks a lot about that. Where was Shavers in one of these camps as well? How much time did
Camp Texarkana. Yeah.
Oh, he was there as well. Okay. So how much time did he do? Like 14 months?
It was, I think it was 14 to 18, somewhere in there. And then from there, halfway house. And then from there on his own.
All right.
But that was a while ago, so I wasn't ready for that.
So that's the traditional stuff. But if you try to fight it, if you don't plead guilty to these kinds of charges and negotiate this kind of a sentence, they try to get you into a real federal prison for potentially life. From my understanding, they are actually fighting it. Like Ian is like, nope, I'm going to fight against these laws. So I wish them the best, but it's a very scary situation. Now, they like some of them were charged for different things, but it's basically wire fraud, which is, moving money across state lines. So there are some variances in some of the charges for the different people. But the point is they were buying and selling Bitcoin while profiting from those sales by charging a percentage on the sales and probably charging percentage on the buys, and without, proper licensing. That's the case. It's known as the Crypto 6. Now, I wanted to have one more person come on. I don't know if I want to give away names, but it was Ian Freeman's roommate who was in the house when 35 SWAT agents with like automatic weapons came in to arrest them as if they were basically ready to blow something up, which is completely ridiculous and unnecessary, though it's New Hampshire and there is a lot of guns in the house. But still, it was just a show of force, like an entire army.
There's some background that I can share that's public information that maybe explains the show of force. Aria, the last person you have listed there, Tom, ran for sheriff in New Hampshire, and Aria, and I apologize, Aria, I'm not sure the correct terminology. I'm not trying to offend you. Aria is either transgender or transsexual, and I apologize.
So here's
no, hold on.
No, I'm going to tell you how to refer. So Ian himself emailed me today and referred to Aria as a she.
Okay. So
really interesting aside, guys, if you can hear me. When I was joining this, I had to update Zoom because, you have to do that like every 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. And in the update, I saw that use of appropriate gender pronouns was included in the update.
Isn't that something?
It is.
Regardless, no offense. I'm not trying to offend Aria. I'm not sure if Aria's personal designation is transsexual or transgender. I don't know what stage we're in. Regardless, Aria ran for sheriff in New Hampshire as a Republican, as a transgender or transsexual Republican, ran for sheriff under the campaign slogan of "fuck the police" and got nearly 25% of the vote. So if you were the sheriff that gets to go and arrest Aria because Aria ran against you under a "fuck the police" motto, how many of those guys down at that police station said, yeah, I'll volunteer to go because we have opposing views? And that's the way police force works. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that type of show of force, I don't think had anything to do with Ian or anything to do with suspects of guns. I think it had everything to do with a response to the political statement of that campaign and a zealous police force trying to respond to that.
And Ian's roommate, okay, also to give more light, Ian's roommate is ex-military and has a very special forces ex-military, and had a lot of guns in the house, like guns that he says the 35 armed SWAT that came were impressed with his arsenal.
Okay.
So they were charged with running an unlicensed money transmitting business, yes?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. So it's basically wire fraud, ATM machines, stuff like that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, numerous people have been busted for this. They all plead guilty. They get a two to 3 year sentence. They're out in 12 to 14 months from a camp, but they are actively fighting this. They're not going to plead guilty. And
I hope they do, just from a philosophical standpoint. I don't know these people. I don't know who they are. I don't really even know the facts. But what I do know is that this charge is undefeatable, really, once crypto is involved. And it is a three-pronged scenario, right? Where first it's a crime to operate a money transmitting business without an appropriate state license. Secondly, it is a crime to operate a money transmitting business without registering with the feds. And third, it is a crime to operate a money transmitting business that involves the transportation or transmission of funds that are known to be derived from crime or unlawful activity, which is why in so many of these scenarios, you see these sort of sting operations go down where you have that undercover cop, you know, that guy that shows up at the meetup with the pink shirt and the, you know, ironed pants. And he's like, yeah, man, I got into Bitcoin because my brother was mining it in 2010. So just from that standpoint, I would love to see someone fight this and possibly, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a scenario where anybody ever prevails, but are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
cool.
we're here.
Yeah, everybody just froze for a second, and I've been freezing so much today. And I was wondering.
No. There's just been so many people in the troll box whinging about us talking over each other and interrupting that I thought I'd just keep my mouth shut and not say anything. Which of course, there's multiple people in Tone's world that wish I would just keep my mouth shut, right? But
Right.
What they don't know is you put all of us in a room together, and this is the kind of conversation we have anyway.
Right, right.
So speaking of the troll
Again, the interrupting, right? Come on, call them out for it, guys.
Bitcoin Motorist is saying that there is no state license for crypto businesses in New Hampshire, but I don't talk about federal law.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, and so I'm just wondering exactly because I'm not up to date on this matter. I've just read some articles on the issue, but I've not delved into it. I've not looked at any sort of like case files or filings or anything like that. But I would like to see specifically like what they would have relied on for that first prong, especially if you don't need to have a license in New Hampshire. And I would know this. I just don't remember what the answer is because we did have to go state by state for one of the exchanges that I was working for.
Right. So Jason can't really comment too much on this.
Yeah.
But Adela, you've ran across many similar cases like this. You are very familiar with these situations. How do you see this playing out? Because as I mentioned earlier, from what I've been told, they are very active and they're also podcasters. They have their radio show. So shout out for them to keep doing what they're doing and trying to spread this freedom. Is that they're actively, hitting the beats of courthouses, handing out information on jury nullification. And maybe, are we allowed to explain what that is on this show?
I can speak about jury nullification generically.
Yes, please.
Jury nullification is the process in which jury nullification can be done from a community standpoint, where the jury does not agree, regardless of the law or regardless of the facts, doesn't agree with the end result, and as such does not rule one way or the other because they completely disagree with what the end result would mean. And so, for example, if you had a death penalty case and you knew the person was going to go to the electric chair, if everybody on the jury was anti-death penalty, and they could get together and agree ahead of time that regardless of the outcome, we're not sending this person to the chair because we don't agree with the law that they're attempting to do, that would be a jury nullification standpoint. So to the extent that a party or parties as part of their strategy are running a public campaign to attempt to obtain jury nullification, that's a risky strategy because if it's found out or if the court's informed of that, then it's a pretty serious business if you're attempting to tamper with or manipulate a jury pool. Best case scenario is nothing happens. Medium case scenario is the prosecutor says, fine, you can't do that anymore, and we're going to go to we're going to move venues to get it to a different jury pool that hasn't been tainted by that. And worst case scenario is that the defendants get some form of contempt or sanction as a result of their actions that could lead to some bad things. You know, as part of every litigation strategy, you want to examine what is going to win the hearts and minds of your peers. And this strategy is a risky one because it can have some consequences. But like I said, I can't speak
Right.
towards their strategy or the content of that, and whether or not I think that's good or bad, simply because I can't.
Right. So just to summarize, for example, in this specific case, it would be yes, they did break federal money transmission laws, but those laws are such bullshit. We're not going to sentence them to any time in prison because the law is terrible, which is probably why I would never be selected for that jury, because I agree that this law is completely terrible. It's kind of like the same thing with what happened, you know, during the runaway slaves, right? So if there was a case where they're like, yes, the slave ran away, and he broke the law by running away, but the law is so bad that we're not going to send him back to the plantation. Basically, it's kind of like the same concept of the jury nullification, which is I don't know if that's one of the original like places where that came out of.
Yeah. So Bitcoin Motorist brings up the statement that it's not illegal to tell people about jury nullification, and he cites the First Amendment.
Yes.
So I didn't know when Bitcoin Motorist became a lawyer, but he's wrong.
Shout out to Bitcoin Motorist, by the way. Such an awesome guy.
Right. And here's why. It's time, place, manner. If us talking about jury nullification right now has zero consequences because we're talking about it in an academic way and educating people on that without any connection to the case, right? But time, place, manner restrictions can be put in place that certain activities related to certain things that have an intent to do something can be illegal. That's why yelling fire in a theater is not okay. That's why inciting violence at a mob is not okay. And just because you handed out jury nullification flyers before and you didn't get caught for something, or nobody reported it, or nobody complained about it, doesn't mean that it can't have consequences. I didn't say that it was illegal. And those words never came out of my mouth. What I said is there can be consequences for that activity.
And it's never really that black and white, is it?
No, it's never that black and white.
Right.
But if I was a prosecutor and there were people on the steps handing out jury nullification instructions, and I was able to tie those people to a certain party that I was going up against, I would walk into that courtroom and I would, having obtained flyers, and I would complain to the judge all day long and twice on Sunday that this is what's going on in this case, and this is tampering with a jury pool, and I want this and I want that. And now the defense team isn't able to focus on the merits of the case. Now they're having to defend whether or not their jurisdiction gets moved, whether or not they get sanctioned. It burns up time, effort, energy, resources that may be better spent doing something else than handing or coordinating or having to deal with jury nullification papers. Again, it's a choice. There's ramifications.
So I do love the fact that the concept of jury nullification exists, but the courts are very, very protective of making sure jurors don't know that there is a jury nullification option where the jury agrees that the person was guilty, but yet don't want to punish the person.
Go ahead, Adele.
Oh, can you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So no, I just went back to the press release from the DOJ, and I just see that there's a bit that goes, according to the According to the indictment, some defendants then engage in substantial efforts to evade detection of their unlawful virtual currency exchange scheme by avoiding answering financial institutions' questions about the nature of the business and misleading financial institutions into believing that their unlawful virtual currency exchange business was instead a religious organization receiving charitable donations. This is super interesting. Why? So I would love to see some of the reliance for some of these charges. So what's happened there is something that every single cryptocurrency company has done at one point or the other, and that is omit information when opening a bank account. Why? Because it's impossible to keep a bank account if you are almost impossible to keep a bank account if you are a crypto company. And so most crypto companies that I know of, that I've worked with, that I've worked for, that I've run, we've had to have many, many bank accounts, and not.
But that sees changing, right?
It is changing. Yes, this is changing, and that's for another Bitcoin law review at another time, because there's actually a lot of developments there. But I mean, what this says is that they, probably omitted stuff and misrepresented some things to open and keep bank accounts to keep their business going. And so, right. Jason, like, what are you making of this? I see your face.
Oh, yeah, well, I want to clear it up. I have absolutely no idea if any of the 6 are handing out nullification flyers. I'm just aware of a campaign in New Hampshire to hand out those flyers. I don't actually know who is handing them out.
Great. Can we leave it alone now in the fucking troll box? Motorist, dude, stop being so goddamn defensive and chill, man. Wow. I have defended people's rights to hang truck nuts from their trucks as First Amendment speech. Okay.
What's a truck nut?
You don't know what truck nuts are?
No.
Okay. Aside. So they look like testicles. They're made out of metal, and people hang them from the tow hitch at the back of their truck in order to designate big balls on the back of their truck.
Why would that even be an issue? It's your truck. Like, you could.
Well, people were offended by it.
Oh, okay.
They're offended by the display of nuts. Particularly women were offended by that. Okay. And I actually gave an interview to a national reporter on why it could be considered that the display of testicles on a truck could be considered protected political speech. And in that case, I would fight to my death for the right for somebody to be able to dangle their truck nuts. Okay. Where does that tie in? Trump was elected, and millions of women across the United States put a vagina hat on. Great. If you can wear a vagina hat and that's not offensive because it's political speech, you can dangle truck nuts.
I mean, I just don't really understand why anybody's ever offended by any of this. Oh, I'm really offended by a vagina. Oh, I'm really offended by
because
nuts.
People get offended. It's what they, I mean, it's ridiculous. A new national sport.
It's ridiculous, is what it is.
People were offended on your behalf, thinking I interrupted you. It's a national sport to be offended, as though somehow it matters. I'm offended. Okay. And?
Right.
Anyway.
All right, so
let's wrap this up. We're circling the drain, I think. Tone, go for it.
Oh no, Adela was actually saying something about not disclosing full information to a bank that you're a crypto business in order for you to hold on to that business.
Yeah. Everybody does it. Every single crypto company has done it. Seriously, find me and challenge me on this one. I will die on that hill. It's standard operations in the space, to be quite frank.
Right. So are you bringing that up to reference, money transmitter or people that, I mean, let's talk about something somewhat related to
You know what
the
I'm
six,
bringing
but
up,
not the
Vays?
six. And
Here's
I'm
what I'm
thinking
here's what I'm bringing
local-
up with this.
Go ahead.
Here's what I'm bringing up with this. It is a federal crime to tell someone that you filed an SR on them.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
A
Yep.
SAR, for the people who are listening, is a suspicious activity report. And if you are a registered financial institution with the US Treasury, you are obligated to file such things. And so on, what's happened right there, most probably, is that the six, or some of the six, or whomever related to the six, have now really been informed that they've had a SAR filed on them. That's exactly what happened. They opened bank accounts, or a bank account. The bank filed a SAR. The SAR then got elevated, especially in the wake of this this whole matter. And now this is coming out. So that's why I mentioned that I would really love to see the reliance for some of the stuff that's in the media release. Why are you sighing? You're sighing.
No. I'm just, honestly, I just wanted to bring attention to this case. So,
Well, so here's why this case matters to your viewers, Tone. Everybody out there that is still kind of doing the local Bitcoins type thing, right? They buy a Bitcoin and they go to the bar and they got a buddy that says, hey, I want some Bitcoin. And that guy says, sure, I'll sell you some Bitcoin for a beer. And bang, instantly that guy that sold a Bitcoin for a beer is potentially a money services business that failed to register in violation of federal law. Okay. And at the crux of it, at the end of the day of it, people trying to sell their Bitcoin to other people are violating that law. It's not a crime against morality. It's not a crime against humanity. It's a paper crime, right? You're selling a product. We told you had to be registered before doing that, and you weren't. So you broke the law, and now we're going to come after you, right? And that's any of these viewers that are, buying and selling Bitcoin, thinking that it's their own thing when they sell to somebody else, right? That there's that potential risk.
now also, can we be clear that Monero doesn't solve this problem?
What?
doesn't.
I love Monero. What are you talking about?
So to
Oh.
continue on in this risk analysis, you try to deposit some money, and maybe you say, fine, I will register. I am going to be a registered money services business. And I will start a business because I'm trying to comply, right? So now I open a bank account and they say, what business are you in? I'm a money services business. I deal in crypto. And now you can't get a bank account, or they know that you are. And so now every time you deposit money, that bank's internal risk management process may say, every time that guy deposits money related to crypto, file a suspicious activity report. So then those reports start building up. So you were trying to comply, and now you've screwed yourself over because the bank that you're at is required to file suspicious activity reports by their risk assessment management team that believes that any sale of crypto is related to potential illegal activity for money laundering or drug sales or what have you. Then you get an investigative team in some small town that decides that decides that they're going to follow up on one of these things, and they send an agent out. And they try to buy Bitcoin through the normal course of business, through the people that are buying and selling cryptocurrency, and maybe have advertised that they do. And they tell a story. That agent tells a story that, maybe they want to acquire Bitcoin to buy drugs, or they want to acquire Bitcoin because they have some money from a drug sale and they want to convert it. They'll tell some story that associates that money services business with a drug sale and money related to a drug sale. So instantly at that point, what do you have? You're facilitating criminal activity related to money laundering. So you've got an unlicensed money services business combined with money laundering connected to illicit activities. And it's the trifecta, check, check, check. You've just done it all. And you did it to a federal agent who's wearing a wire, is undercover, and more likely than not, there's 10 guys in SWAT gear in unmarked vans around you that are getting ready to take you down. And congratulations, you hit bingo because you were trying to buy and sell Bitcoin, but you did it stupidly, or you did it incorrectly, or you tried to comply and whatever. So that, without talking about the details of the Crypto 6 case, the elements of the Crypto 6 case are elements that are happening all over the United States, and it's not the first one. I was working on another case out of Washington State. It had the same fact pattern. Look for it, be aware of it, understand that the government is doing this. And if you don't want that to happen to you, stop selling Bitcoin to your peers, maybe, or don't sell Bitcoin to people that tell you that it's as a result of a drug deal. I don't know. Interesting. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, no, we've been warning people about this for a long time. We've covered many of these cases. And yeah, I think it is time to wrap it up. I mean, the show lasted 2.5 hours. It's a longer show. We will.
Can we end on a happy note?
What's a happy note in the legal case? The El Salvador news. We didn't get to that. That's a happy note.
It is a happy note. And by the way, 2.5 hours is a short.
Oh no, Jason just froze. So now it's just me. Well, we're gonna end on a happy. Oh yeah, there it is.
El Salvador.
Hey, a quick word on the El Salvador news from a legal perspective. Close us out.
So El Salvador says Bitcoin's money. Move to El Salvador. That's it. That's all we're gonna do. We'll save it for next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for watching. Again, we don't have much information on the Crypto 6 case. I'm very hesitant in bringing any of them on the show, even if they want to come on a show, because I don't want to make their case worse than it is by them having to say something on the show. I also don't want to get stuck going to court in case they said something on the show. And yeah, I wanted to bring some attention to it because I believe, I like the people. I think they're good people. I think the laws are a little unjust, and I'm happy that someone is going around informing the world that there is such a thing as jury nullification. Those are just my opinions on the situation. All right, guys. We covered a little bit of Ripple. We covered a little bit of Tether as best we can. So Tether haters. I mean, look, Jason, do you want like a Tether, like maybe Bitfinex will be willing to come on, or maybe someone with over 10,000 Twitter followers, legitimate ones, someone with a reputation wants to come on and explain why Tether is a scam, because I'm like completely hated for not calling it a scam because I'm waiting for the New York Attorney General.
Well, I told you this a long time ago. I will come on your show and defend or accuse any subject at any point in time. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, Adele is back. We were just trying to close up by saying El Salvador says Bitcoin's money. Move there.
No, your thoughts on El Salvador real quick. We probably might cover that next show.
We should. We really should. I'm not as stoked. I think it's great, but I've also sort of examined some of the not so great things that could possibly happen if you don't have a benevolent government who is now deemed that Bitcoin is legal tender, and so now can regulate and do whatever they want with it. And so just imagine a scenario where every citizen, there's a mandate that says that every citizen who's a Bitcoin holder must register their personal wallets on some sort of database, much like
no more mattress money
in Zen. Right. Also, that every business has to accept it. I don't like the forced the forced implications of this. I think free markets should operate as they will, and it should be voluntary.
If the government has said that it is legal tender in El Salvador, just like legal tender in the United States, every person in the United States every business in the United States must accept the US dollar as legal tender for goods and services.
Right, but it gets a little nuanced than that, right? Because some businesses have stopped accepting cash.
But they still accept US dollars with a debit card.
Correct.
And the reason they stopped accepting cash isn't because they don't like cash, it's because they didn't want the germs from COVID.
Well,
Right.
That's one reason. There's other.
I mean, the reason I don't want to accept cash is I really don't want my hands to be tainted with cocaine and herpes from, sorry, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. But I think people need to really start thinking this through. It's not being thought through. Everybody in the Bitcoin community, especially our little toxic maximalist faction, everybody's like, yes, El Salvador, go El Salvador. And then, you have a Brock and his minions heading down there representing the Bitcoin community. I mean, what does that even mean?
Brock is not my president. That's all I'm saying.
No, actually, I was on Clubhouse the other day. I just joined it. It's actually fairly addictive. And the El Salvador thing came up, and I was actually a little bit critical on how that happened. Like, I would have rather, I'm with you, Adela, I would have rather seen El Salvador just buy Bitcoin in their reserve and tell the people of their country that, hey, Bitcoin is accepted here and is welcome here, and Bitcoin are welcome here, and we're going to use Bitcoin in our strategic reserve to help our country never borrow money again. I would have rather seen...
No, that's because you'd rather see Bitcoin as an investment instead of a currency. That's your own preference.
It's not about one. Oh, it's not what I would rather see. I just thought at the moment, Bitcoin can be both. That's why I'm saying, like,
no. You're saying you'd rather they hold it in their national reserve. By moving Bitcoin into a transactional process, right? Actual peer-to-peer cash, which I believe is what the original Satoshi white paper, call me a boomer, fucking do it. Call me a boomer. I know the Satoshi white paper.
Not going to do it.
Right. Tone, have you been to the mountain?
Oh,
have you been to the mountain?
That's John Seth's paper?
Have you been to the mountain? If you'd been to the mountain, you'd be saying absolutely 100% El Salvador is what we all wanted. It's what everybody wanted. Right? And now all of a sudden people are like, no, we don't want it to be a peer-to-peer cash system where we can have private transactions amongst each other. And but no, it's going to be a store of value.
I'm saying,
we're going to get the store of value argument again, aren't we?
It can be both. I mean, the store of value is just a little more important, especially at the moment, until the Lightning Network is very user-friendly and has a lot more volume on it. And they can always say that, hey, Bitcoin is welcome. If a business wants to accept it, they can accept it. If a person wants to pay in it and a business wants to accept it, they can accept it.
The fastest way to global adoption of the technology is a mandate that it be accepted.
Adela and I.
That is true. That is true. I really cannot disagree with this. However,
No, you're right. The fastest way to fully vaccinate the public is to mandate the vaccine. Yes, exactly. That is an undeniable statement. Yes.
Exactly. But for me, historically, payment systems have been driven by private and not state actions. And, we don't even think about this, especially when this is a bit of an emotional issue for some of us, but the importance of that is understated, and listen, growth in an economy is disproportionately founded on bottom-up innovation and competition. Okay. And so when a state wants to mandate and tell me what to do as a business, my knee-jerk reaction is to not believe them.
That's because
I-
we, and I agree with you, but that's our libertarianism showing, right? Let us be who we are.
Yeah.
But to the extent that El Salvador, sovereign nation, has said, you're going to accept Bitcoin. Okay, great. Did El Salvador say, you're going to accept Bitcoin and we're going to build the entire infrastructure for it and make you purchase point of sale machines? No. Why? Because you don't need it with Bitcoin.
You kind of do.
No, I can accept, and everybody in El Salvador has one of these fucking things, right? And once you have one of these, you can have a paper wallet where somebody with a QR code.
Clearly, you have never been to El Salvador. So what about a bodega? In the middle of nowhere, where they're still using the little drug dealer phones.
Yeah, but you know what those little drug dealer phones can have? You know what they got? They got some dude that's the head drug dealer down the way in his mansion, and that little bodega has got a QR code, a paper one, that the customers scan and they send the Bitcoin to that. So don't tell me Bitcoin is technologically reliant upon transactions when that can be done.
So Bitcoin Motorist actually raises a really cool point in the chat. And he's saying no one is being forced to accept Bitcoin. This is FUD. And I agree with him, but he's hedging this statement on benevolence. And so my whole thing is like, I don't really have a very strong opinion about any of this.
I would Jason on this one, right? Like the concept of legal tender is that you will have to accept it. Maybe not tomorrow, but in a year or two, everyone will have to accept it if someone wants to pay with it. That's the whole concept of legal tender. Otherwise, why make it legal tender?
So I want to point out that we were trying to wrap up the show.
We're going to save this for the next show. We're going to look up our legal tender laws, and we're going to come back to that.
And I've actually done some research on this. So yes, bring it on. Let's do it next time.
All right, we'll do it.
I'm ready to talk about this.
Because
I'm ready to play devil's advocate. And let me just say this. It is really important for us to, as empirical people, as thinking people, to not just like accept something as a blanket and go like, oh yeah, that's really cool, but really to investigate and to look at like scenarios where that mandate might not be such a good idea. And that's my whole premise here, where a benevolent government will be awesome for this. This is great. Legal tender, yeah. But
the definition of a benevolent government is subjective.
Yes, it is. You're right. You're absolutely right.
No, we got to wrap up. I'm going to be the benevolent dictator on this one. Right. Thank you all so much for watching, guys.
Cheers.
See everyone on